BeTheTalk, episode 226, featuring Eli Joseph. Welcome to BeTheTalk. We go behind the talk 7 days a week for tips and techniques to help you change the world. I'm Nathan Eckel, and a talker myself, I'm interviewing others who change the world with their talk. You can too, even if you've never given a talk before. Let's get started with today's show. We are live with Eli Joseph. Eli, are you ready to talk?
Yes, Nathan. Thank you for having me.
Eli Joseph is a statistician who is currently serving as a faculty member at Columbia University, Queens College, and Marymount Manhattan College. He was born and raised in New York City and currently owns 2 world records on recordsetters.com. Eli Joseph, welcome to the talk.
Thank you for having me, Nathan.
Your talk is called, Can We Determine Team Success Without a Scoreboard? And before I do a little lead in for that, what are the world records? Because everybody wants to know that.
Okay, the 2 world records, the first one is in 2015, where I was a senior at Queens College. I was basically taking 10 classes in one semester. That is equal to about 30 credits in one semester.
Wow.
And that is basically a rare anomaly.
That's like a graduate degree in one semester. That's exactly. Like getting a master's degree in one semester.
Exactly. So I basically took about 7 classes undergrad and 3 classes grad. And these classes are it's not easy at all. I was a math major. So you can imagine that I was taking numbers theory, advanced calculus, which is equal to about calculus 4. I was taking problem solving in classes as well. And I basically needed that semester to graduate early. And I graduated within 2 to 3 years at Queens College. So that was the first world record in 2015. The second world record.
You survived the first world record.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
No. What was the second world record?
Subsequently, I finished my master's in 2016 and I was accepted at Felician University as in the doctorate program. And it was basically the doctorate of business administration. And I was the youngest to do that at the age of 22. So,
doctorate at the age of, were they calling you Doogie Howser or something? Or what? Do they have little joke names, or were they nice to you?
They were nice. They were pretty nice.
Okay.
I think they really appreciated my accomplishments at the moment. And I am currently, I'm almost defending my dissertation. I am currently in the midst of finishing that as well.
What's the topic of your dissertation? Sorry, Talk Universe. I got to ask these questions. It's a little unusual.
No problem. The topic of my dissertation basically stems from examining the relationship between the weather patterns and stock returns. So, let's say if it's sunny today, is there a possibility that the stock market may have a positive outcome or a negative outcome? And we're basically taking the time series data that spans over about 15 years from 2000 to 2018. And we're basically, taking monthly data sets to figure out whether or not there is a relationship between the weather and stock returns.
Okay. Go on. Sorry.
No problem. At the same time, I'm basically looking at investor sentiment as well. That's it. Yeah.
Great. Well, that's obviously related to your talk. Can we determine team success without a scoreboard? Because you have, you love to figure out algorithms relating one thing to another thing and predicting things. You have a 94% success rate in your algorithm of the season in which you analyzed all the major league sports teams. And you correct me, I'm just trying to give the bird's eye view. You basically did a Moneyball big data prediction, and I don't remember the equation exactly, but it was basically all the offensive moves, all of the activities that happen on the field divided by like errors and forfeitures and things like that. I'm really oversimplifying it, but you found an algorithm that is 94% accurate. Pretty powerful.
Yes, that's great, and it's actually a great segue into my TED Talk. I think that I use this model to basically take away the fact that the scoreboard doesn't necessarily have much impact in terms of the team success. John Wooden basically mentioned that in 2001 in his TED Talk, that you can outscore a team and you can still lose a game. and you can win a game when you are outscored as well. So in my model, to simplify an abstract model, I basically added all the offensive and defensive successes of a particular team, regardless of the sport, and I measured that against the error. So per se, let's say we're talking about a football game. In the football game, we're looking at the total yards in terms of passing, rushing, in terms of return yards as well. We're looking at the defensive characteristics, whether it's interceptions, forced fumbles. We're also looking at the amount of first downs. We're basically taking all those statistical components and we're basically measuring that against the error, or the mistakes. The mistakes in football would basically be the turnovers, the interceptions, the fumbles as well. We're also looking at the incompletions as well from a football perspective. And we're basically measuring each team's success based off that algorithm.
So
the 94%, it's not necessarily the accuracy of the particular model itself. It's basically, it correlates to the fact that 94% of the winners were actually indeed successful in this model.
Yeah. Well, and I'm just trying to extrapolate life principles. It's almost like you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, or, those kinds of, truisms that we hear about. You got to go out there and swing for the fences, or you've got to just get base hits, or you've got to do small little things over time. Basically it's all about activity with reasonable accuracy, compounding and resulting in victory for the other side. I thought it was neat how you had a line graph over the first quarter, the second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. And what I noticed on one of your examples, Eli, the first quarter, it was inverted. The losing team was doing 4 times better in the first quarter, but then you showed, it's absolutely fascinating, the two lines and how the other team would progressively beat out the other team. And to me, it almost looked like you've been able to graphically represent mindsets and teamwork and good coaching and halftime speech. All the stuff that probably happened behind the scenes, all the interpersonal dynamics, the divas or the team players, all of those kinds of things. You're able to statistically and visually represent all of these pieces. I just think it's fascinating. What do you have to say about all that?
Yes, in fact, the game that you're referring to is the Duke versus Syracuse game within the Sweet 16 of the NCAA tournament. I believe that Duke got off to a slow start, and Syracuse got off to a fast start as well. But at the same time, Duke was still in the game, and they were losing by 1 point, but at the same time, they were still successful. And during the outcome of the game, Duke has eventually moved on. So you can say to yourself that the scoreboard, it basically measures who's winning at the moment. But at the same time, you have to ask yourself this question: is that team actually successful? Is that team actually making the plays in order for them to be successful in the long run? And it also applies in real life as well, in terms of, whether you may have a bad day today, but that doesn't mean that you're a loser. You have to basically use that day as a form of motivation, and basically apply certain characteristics, certain attributes that basically you took throughout this day, and make sure you propel that into success in the future.
We've been enjoying this conversation with Eli Joseph. He has cracked the code. He is Mr. Moneyball. His talk is called "Can We Determine Team Success Without a Scoreboard?" If you coach Little League, if you play on the basketball team, if you do any kind of team sports, you're going to want to turn other people onto this fascinating talk, because there's going to be a lot of, the real stuff that doesn't make it on the board, the scoreboard, is the stuff that Eli calculates behind the scenes, and it really does make for success. We'll be back with Eli Joseph in just a moment for the Blitz round. People ask, how could I start a 7-day-a-week podcast? It's because of what I've learned from my mentors. Some of the best mentors in history aren't around anymore. They've left hours of one-on-one mentoring behind in their books. Each month at Classics on Tap, I record a new chapter from a classic business book to help you make a difference. Download your first chapter at classicsontap.com. And we're back with Eli Joseph. It is time for the Blitz round. I'm about to ask Eli a couple of either or questions related to the preparation and performance of his recent TEDx Syracuse talk. Are you ready, Eli?
Yes, Nathan.
First of all, was it TEDx Syracuse? Did I get that right?
Yes, you got it right.
All right, I got it right, and which was why the example you used was a particularly painful example. Why don't we start there? Why you should have done TEDx Duke, except there's a little matter of getting accepted.
I think it's funny because it's basically Syracuse rival team as well. You know, Jim
real
Boeheim
painful.
And Coach K, yes, Coach K and Jim Boeheim has a long history, so it was a very painful talk that I had to get in front of.
Did you hear like a Marge Simpson from The Simpsons grinding of teeth noise as you were going through this painful example?
Yes.
I know these are all kind of off the script Blitz round questions. I got to ask it, Eli.
Yes, moan and groans, and in fact, I actually heard the groans. And in the TED talk, I said, "Oh God, yeah, I hear the groans through the through the grapevine." So I knew that it was not necessarily a good example to use, but it was good.
It's a great example. It's just a painful one. That's all.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's an emotional event, and people weren't sleeping through your talk for sure.
No,
and it was all about math. So
yes.
you got them to feel non-traditional forms of anger towards mathematics as opposed to the traditional anger.
Yep. Yes, it's true. Yeah.
All right. So, are you a memorizer, an improviser, or a blender?
I am an improviser. I believe that in a TED, when you're giving a TED talk, it's important to memorize the talk, but at the same time, once you memorize it, you have to internalize the talk so that you can be prepared for, and the anomalies or unexpected, events. I believe that when I started out, I had a script. I had a script in the beginning and I was going to stick to the script. After the first set of rehearsals at Syracuse University, I basically threw the whole entire script away and started from scratch again. But since I internalized most of the script, it was not a problem for me to improvise. And from that point on, the beginning of the TED Talk, I did not change the beginning of the TED Talk until the day of the TED Talk. So the beginning of the talk is basically I basically used an analogy where my mom was interested in a particular game, and she was basically judging the teams based off of the scoreboard. And I basically told my mom that I would literally create a model that basically explains why a scoreboard is not necessarily the end all or the story of the entire game. And I did not have that at first. I did not have this particular, beginning of the talk at first. I had to utilize the comments that were made from other speakers and the other administrators, and I basically input that within my talk the day of the event.
Eli, what was the most unexpected, strange, or just plain weird thing that happened during or before your talk?
I believe the strangest thing I've encountered within the talk. I look at the crowd. I oftentimes look at the crowd when I'm doing the talk, and I looked in the front row, and aside from a person taking pictures of the TED Talk, there's someone just literally smiling the whole entire talk. I thought that was strange, but at the same time, I fed off his energy, and I utilized his energy in order for me to smile throughout my talk. And I'm not sure if he thought something was funny, but I used that as, he was, give an enjoyable talk as well, especially when you're given an abstract talk that deals with mathematical models and things that may be confusing. His energy basically was the positive, and it basically made a positive impact on my talk.
Talk Universe, you gotta be careful about those smilers. Sometimes they can throw you off a little bit. We've been enjoying this Blitz round with Eli Joseph. He is a phenomenon He is Mr. Moneyball. I don't know if you've been called that, but you have been now. You can add that to your titles. His talk is called Can We Determine Team Success Without a Scoreboard? If you want to check that out and you're too lazy to type it all into YouTube, just go to BeTheTalk.com, because I've got a clickable link to Eli's talk, as well as we're going to have a clickable link to Eli's LinkedIn profile, and you can connect with him, find out how to get a master's degree basically in a semester like Eli did, and get in the world record books for that. We'll be back in just a moment with Eli Joseph for the final word of advice. Everyone wants to change the world, but not everyone knows the first step. Before you can change the world with your talk, it has to be selected. So grab the templates, timelines, and tools that I use to get my talk selected at BeTheTalk.com. And we're back with the final word of advice for Talk Universe with Eli Joseph. What is it?
The final word of advice for prospective speakers is to have a topic that is diverse enough that can fit in through any theme. So for the future, I believe that prospective candidates or prospective speakers should keep in mind that there's a specific theme for a certain TED Talk or for a certain branded talk as well.
Eli Joseph, thanks so much for coming on the talk today and sharing your wisdom with Talk Universe.
Thank you for having me, Nathan.
Thanks for listening to Be the Talk. For tips and resources to help you change the world, go to BeTheTalk.com. See you tomorrow.